So, welcome to He Believes, She Feels. I have the lovely Aurora here, personal trainer, nutritionist, channeler, psychic, medium, all the above, right? Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Let's just get to it. I wanted to talk a little bit about, tell the audience a little bit about your journey, how you got to where you are now, and kind of like your upbringing.
Let's get into it. So I have always been a very psychic, intuitive person. My first memories from when I was 3 years old, there's a vivid dream I had. I can remember it detailed until like to this day. It was so deeply tied to my purpose here too. And then even outside of that, I was seeing and interacting with angels. I mean, seeing them with my physical eyes, not just like when my eyes are shut. So seeing angels, seeing demons, all these things have been, all these different frequencies I have been seeing and interacting with my whole life. It's
How was that growing up when you saw those images? That's hard.
so higher frequency beings. I'm so grateful for this. My mother and my grandmother, they have always been I come from a very religious family. Like many of us can probably resonate with that. And they always validated me seeing angels. So that was a wonderful thing. The only thing that was like the negative side of that, when I was actually experiencing negative entities and spiritual attacks, I mean, 3 years old, 4 or 5, all the way up through like even high school, that was always invalidated. So, I look back at that, and that has been a limitation on my journey, one to overcome is, you know, not just feeling safe in the light, but feeling safe in all spectrums.
Kind of conquering our own demons, our own shadow as well, but working through like I can imagine how that would have felt growing up and just literally growing up seeing those two kind of images and not validating the darker side, right?
Yeah, and that ended up manifesting as severe anxiety. So, and that was actually something I was experiencing behind closed doors. Having anxiety attacks by myself in my room and not knowing what was going on and not feeling safe to talk about it. So there was always this theme: you're allowed to address the positive, shove the negative down.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
That's a very common theme nowadays, isn't it? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, no, you're right. It's toxic positivity. That's that culture, be positive, think positive. And, we see it in the law of attraction manifestation space as well. And it keeps us in this loop because we are missing that alchemist piece.
Yeah, that's one of the most important parts that I've learned throughout this journey as well. What about, talk to me about your awakening process, when you knew this was something different, besides just seeing the angels and the demons and everything else, but when you actually knew like this is kind of your life purpose and going forward.
So this will be the first time I'm sharing this story. I have tried to share it on my Instagram years ago. My Instagram just like fritzed out. So it must be an important story. And my awakening started in a very, of course, it looking at my astrology chart, this makes sense, but it started in a very like aggressive way. So I ended up going through a situation where I crashed my car, went down a 40-foot embankment. So it was like this, I always call it this spiritual warfare moment. So this accident happened. It was very unexplainable because I had no bruises, I had no cuts. It was raining that night. I had no mud on my clothes. As I was going down the embankment, mind you, I had not seen light beings in physical with my eyes form since I was a child. This being pops up in my car. Next thing I know, I'm coming back to consciousness. I'm far away from my car, have no clue how I got out. A friend came and picked me up. I checked my phone the next day. I didn't call her. It was it was the moment that said your life was spared for a reason and it's time to get on track. So I actually jumped into the church after that, but it was me awakening up.
Yeah, I mean, Thank you for sharing that. No, that's beautiful, and it takes courage to share that message out there. Hopefully, nothing glitches over here too. uh, but I feel like a lot of the awakenings, regardless if it's male or female, have a lot to do with trauma, right? It's always trauma induced some way, shape, or form, which creates and then some chemical reaction happens, and it's here's your awakening process. So it's very interesting. So glad you said church. Let's talk about, so how did that, talk to me a little bit about religion and where you came from in that aspect and how the church, even after all that you experienced.
It that was the first place I knew to go for spiritual growth, for spiritual awakening, as all these feelings were starting to be dredged up. And mind you, I've been through multiple big spiritual awakenings, so this was the first one. Um, but I got into the church and it felt good for a while, and then things fell off again. And then that's where I went into this dark night of the soul really, really hard. Um, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And I mean, I ended up finding new age starseed communities, all of this, and also jumped back into the church after that. And then came back into the spiritual community. But as I reflected on that this past week, because religious programming is a big thing that can hinder us on our journey, especially as someone who is psychic intuitive, which I mean, we all are, but those programs can make it really hard to feel safe in that space. But with religion, what it was giving me was that activation. You know, we hear about these DNA activations, light code activations. Well, church does that. Religion does that. It gives you that activation, like, aha, ooh, that makes sense. But what's missing, and what always was missing the mark, was the stabilization and just the integration of those energies, really grounding them into the physical and not just leaving it up in the ethers as just an idea. So,
Yeah, yeah. I have a lot of, I come across a lot of souls that are exactly for that. Just came out of the religion, and it's always taught to look outside, not look within, and disconnect that one crucial connector that opens the door to everything, right?
yeah, when I think back to church services and just being in church in general, there was such a disconnection with the body, disconnection with the emotions. I was taught if you're feeling anxious, depressed, it's outside of you. It's demonic, and that taught me to reject my all my sides, all my emotions, and actually take responsibility and take hold of them. So it's like when you were, gosh, disembodied, when you were disconnected from your body, what happens is you can't connect with yourself very well. That embodiment helps you to connect with God and ground that in. And I always think it's funny. Of course, the best way to control is to disconnect from God, stand in the pulpit, say, I'm the only connector. Make sure you give me 10% to have that connection. I
Isn't that
said it.
funny?
I
You
said
said
it.
it. I know. I know. I know. We have to be controversial. We have to speak the truth, and there's no other way around it. I always found that very interesting, and I know we can go down a rabbit hole with this, but yeah, that's that. So after that, what got you into nutritionist? You're a nutritionist now, right? Personal trainer. So what got you into that, and then dabbled into the whole world of psychic and medium?
Yeah. Well, nutrition and fitness it's like part of my blueprint. And, if people are into star seed stuff, there are specific star systems where we have, those aspects connected, and places like Sirius, Andromeda, they're very connected to embodiment practices, holistic practices. And I think I just like was born with it. My mother, I think the healthiest she ever ate was when she was pregnant with me. So by no coincidence, it's always been a part of my reality, and it was my saving grace. It was it was the only way I knew how to process my emotions when I was waking up, other than like being just outside. So, as a nutritionist now, working with people, working on myself and trying new things, I have noticed what an important tool nutrition and fitness and just those holistic health habits play on our spiritual journey, on stabilizing these frequencies. And just even things like, it doesn't sound spiritual and sexy, I know, but like gut health, blood sugar regulation, all of these things help you to not feel like you're completely drowning when you're going through a dark night of the soul, a quantum leap, all these different things. It's the one thing that keeps my head screwed on tight.
Yeah, I can only imagine when I eat heavier foods and was going through that. I can definitely align to that. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that. So what specifically, like in terms of nutrition, give me some examples or something you're going through when you're going through that.
Like the gut health and
Yeah, yeah,
the different
something.
things that help to bring that together.
Yes.
Yeah, so as I said, it doesn't sound like the sexy conversation, but man, oh man, is it going to help people feel embodied and really, gosh, clear energy and everything. But things like protein, getting enough protein for your body, getting enough fiber, probiotic rich foods, you know, eating and making sure to like, I will eat like protein and fiber before carbohydrates. It reduces your blood sugar spike. Go for a walk after a meal reduces blood sugar spike. And, when you look at the energetics of blood sugar dysregulation, gut health dysregulation, all that ties into our hormones. It ties into our nervous system. We know our nervous system is absolutely crucial when it comes to all things energetic frequency, sensing that psychic work and everything. That nervous system plays that physiological part. So, you know, really, reducing ultra processed foods, processed sugars. It doesn't have to be a complete overhaul. It can be an 80-20 thing. But, if you have more practice of what it feels like to feel mentally, energetically clear because of your nutrition, you can't help but really want to lean into it fully.
Yeah, yeah. As you say this, I'm just thinking about the things that I eaten before and now that I've cut off in my life. And I think the number one place, especially when we live in the United States, is like we have over like 30 to 40 banned foods all over the world. But here it's okay, right? Here it's approved.
When I was in Iceland this year, and that was like a spiritual pilgrimage for me, a grid work pilgrimage, the frequency there is so different. The crime level is lower. The food is so fresh. They have some of the cleanest water in the world. So naturally, it's those grids there sit at a different frequency. And I came back to the US and I'm like, all of a sudden, I don't want processed food. I don't want this, that, and the other. My appetite changed through that. And it was just, you're somewhere, you're anchoring those higher frequencies. You come back to, where you live. And I believe I brought a piece of that back to where I came, back to where I live now. So
Yeah, I get examples of people that go to like Italy or go to other places. They eat pizza and pasta, they don't get bloated, and it's just like, oh, I feel great. Here you eat like one little grain and you're like, what's happening to me?
there are weird things in our food. And I mean, it feeds parasites. So I'm getting ready to do a parasite cleanse this month. But, parasites physically and energetically, I mean, that's what we think of when it's like low vibrational entities. So even in that physical form, I've done 2 parasite cleanses before. It has really helped my mental health, stabilizing energy better. So, we just cannot disconnect the body from the spirit. Like we can't live in these higher chakras. We've got to like root it down.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I feel like we're in the same path because I just
Yeah.
ordered my parasite cleanse as well, and I just took it as an intuition. I was like, oh, why do I want to order this? And it should be here today or tomorrow to do that exact gut health, like the whole detox.
Yeah. It's it's a fun ride. I always preface that with parasite cleanses. I'm like, think of it as a mini dark night of the soul. You'll get through it. You'll be better for it.
Okay. Thanks for letting
Think
me know it's gonna be a ride.
mine. I go into it with the mindset of spiritual initiation, and that perspective shift really. I don't know. It kind of calms the nerves a little bit. I'm like, okay, like this. It has a purpose, and
There's always a purpose, right? And like I
yeah.
said, you hit it. You aligned straight to my heart. It's like I feel like this is the initiation to something else, and it's like I told you off camera was I'm starting to eat less heavy foods and being wanting to crave fruits or something from the ground. It's been interesting how my appetite has changed, and I don't eat as often anymore either, and that has to do a lot with the spirituality, right? And let's transition to that.
The spirituality just in terms of
like how what you do, and since you have the body, mind, and the nervous system, right? So now let's talk a little bit more about the spirituality aspect of things and how you transition and you use nutrition with the spirituality and what you do specifically.
Yeah. I mean, the nutrition, the exercise practice, like all of my embodiment practices, that's just consistent. Um, but I mean, tying it to the spiritual side, trying to think of a good example for this. I mean, hmm, help me out here. I'm
Does
having a little mental
does
block
the
right now.
No, you're good. Does the like the because I know you see people's auras. I know
Yeah.
you have different symptoms and ascension things that happen to you, and then some of those tools. So how did that correlate? So I know we have body. So you said that eating healthy, having your taking out those parasites. Now here you are in your awakening because you said you had multiple
Mhm.
awakenings, right? So talk to me about some of the other things that happened in that. So you see auras, the mediumship, kind of like the psychic abilities. Let's talk about a little bit more of that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those abilities, I like to remind people it's already there. It never left. You're just, when you start creating those changes in your routine and even your spiritual practice, starting to get into like meditation and all these things, um, it just, it just uncovers it. It moves the fog out of the way. There's so much fog when you're going through your spiritual awakening. You feel purposeless, or you feel like you need a purpose. You feel disconnected from others. And, honestly, this comes up too. In that disconnection from others, like I was able to find a lot of connection with people because of like health habits and stuff. So, that started to build that connection piece there. So it doesn't feel, like I'm out here drowning. Same thing with the spiritual community, being connected to other people. Um, and yeah, and
Which is great
trying to
because
think.
I know people are gonna listen to this, and I already know up the top of my head a couple will resonate with you, and it'll bring that message. The some come to mind, especially in the nutrition field, in the personal training field, going through exactly the same thing you've gone through. So that's important. Now, you said you had a little bit of passion more in regards to timeline and quantum jumping.
Oh yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about the difference? What is the timeline jumping? What is that? And go into that.
Yeah, I like to think of timeline jumps make up the whole sandwich that is the quantum leap. So I've always kind of envisioned myself being this like portal priestess in Atlantis back in the day. So all things like let's manipulate the energy is fun. When I think of the definition of like a quantum leap, it's really changing the state of your frequency and stabilizing it because we can move through timelines and jump around on timelines. Let's say they're, different timelines on this frequency band. So that's timeline jumping. There's a similarity in frequency. Maybe we'll have some different experiences, different job, different friends, different hobbies. But it still feels the same. That quantum leap is when you are really deciding on who you want to be, which hopefully is your true authentic self, what version of yourself you want to be. And, and of course, there are different wants and like, want a big house, want a certain job, all these things, but it's really a state of beingness and doing the work to get to that frequency. That work looks like doing the energetic clearing work, doing things to activate your DNA, all of these, different aspects. But, at the core of it, to keep quantum leaping as simple as possible, because it sounds super out of reach. It's you deciding I want to be whoever, showing up as that person each and every day.
Would you say that the timeline jumping compared to quantum leap, it's equivalent to taking actions on the little steps and then you eventually quantum leap into something else?
Yeah, I mean you can naturally do it that way. I think that people can quantum leap consciously and unconsciously. I've done it unconsciously when I was in high school and had no clue what I was doing. And it was through the action of little steps. Funny story. I was like severe anxiety, super shy, did not want to talk to anyone, like would get a stutter when I went to talk to people. And I started setting little like daily, weekly, and monthly challenges for myself. I even tried out for a singing part for a rock band in my
Okay.
school. And what all these little steps did, like I'm still in high school, I'm still in 12th grade, that's staying the same. What it did create, though, was the ability to trust myself to actually go away to college, like actually go away and stand on my own 2 feet. I was poor as can be during that time financially, but man, it was a heck of an experience.
No, I mean that makes a lot of sense. Even with my journey when it came to like this content and everything else, it's like little steps, right? It's
Mhm.
simple as opening up an Instagram page, opening up a YouTube, and little steps until you jump into your highest timeline. So it's literally about the journey. They say success is the journey and who what you create and not the outcome of it, right?
Yeah, and hey, those little steps can turn into a big quantum leap very quickly. It doesn't have to look like, oh, I'll do this habit for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days to get to where I want. Uh, Recently, I think it was like a couple of weeks ago, I woke up and I was like, I'm going to be my higher self today in every single decision. Had no clue what I did have a clue what I was doing, but I didn't know how quick the leap would happen. Literally happened within that day. Um, and I went to a sauna cold plunge breathwork event, and that's where it like catalyzed me. I realized the fear of drowning and responsibility and emotion. It like unlocked a huge block for me. And ever since, I have been going through ascension symptoms, and I'm noticing even my habits are changing. That's another part of like the daily steps. You may notice new habits forming, and that's a different version of yourself coming through. Like anchor it. Like even I find myself taking more walks outside than normal, and I change my workout schedule because I'm like, I need to exercise. Like, I need to do something consistently every single day, not just a few days a week with strength training. I need more.
I can so relate. Like it's very interesting you bring that up because it's like I started to walk more outside my apartment. I cut coffee. I cut a bunch of other things that no longer serve me. Anything that was short. And it's like you lose the like everything that I was before is nothing compared to what I am now. And you're right. It's new habits that generate new thought patterns, new behaviors are all embedded in there. How does one know they quantum leap subconsciously and they came out of it? Is there any like you talked about the symptoms? Is there anything that they should like be aware of?
It's essentially your life taking a completely, like, you're at the fork in the road, and instead of always turning right, you decide to turn left. So, I mean, this is new jobs, new relationships, new levels in your relationships. Um, Financial abundance situation changing, like really like going from being a party person to sobriety. Like these are some positive symptoms, I guess you could call them. It's like manifestation, but instead of I'm going to sit here and write affirmation, I am in a big house making $1 million with my 3 dogs and husband or whatever. It's showing up. Who is that person? Like, how does that person operate in their life? And um, yeah, I mean, I would say the biggest telltale sign is you notice yourself really shifting into a completely it's an identity change, really. That's the best way to put it, an identity change.
Yeah, because it's easier said than done. A lot of people say they want the $1 million house and they want the three, but then when you go to do the work and you realize you have to love yourself and work through your shadows and your demons, all of them, no matter how big or small, yeah, that gets a little cray cray in the sense of like, I'm sure you've gone through those steps.
Yeah, I mean, and it can be frustrating when you are, especially if you're actively like, I'm going to quantum leap. You're very conscious about it and it's taking some time. Um, it's, I just lost my train of thought.
It's okay. Go ahead.
It seems to be the thing today. Anyways, bring me back.
You were thinking about the $1 million and the three dogs and everything else. You
Yes.
got distracted a
So
little bit.
it's about building that capacity. You may you may be like, I feel like I'm ready for whatever this may be. And there's a specific capacity. We've got to be able to hold the capacity for the problems that that version of you may run into. Like, more money, more problems. like,
Yeah, I saw a post the other day and it talked exactly about this. So it aligns very well. It talked about like you want the big job, you want the money, but that comes with a lot of problems. Like what if you had this job and in your life and your kids were threatened because of this job? And if you lost the job, like do you really want that? Or do you want to learn how to love yourself, quantum leap and quantum jump, do all these behaviors that are going to attract the lifestyle that you want and the separation and not having to work? Because we all see people that stuck in the quote unquote matrix, right? That are stuck in those jobs
Yeah.
that drain the energy out of everybody.
Yeah. And, even, gosh, because I feel like I see a lot of people who are like, I want to become a spiritual coach, a spiritual healer, and I want to be a content creator. You've got to be able to hold the capacity for scrutiny. That's a lovely lesson I, started realizing many, many moons ago when I was like, yay, new age spirituality, manifestation. I love this. Um, I was like, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to be a coach. I'm going to be a healer. I'm going to start a blog. Like, this is not my first rodeo. I didn't have the capacity for it. The people pleasing programming was running too strong, and I gave a little bit too much energy towards what will other people think if I say this or post this? Now I'm like, if you're not in my frequency, you're not my frequency. Like, it's not personal.
Yeah, I think we've all gone through that, and it will only continue to get greater. The more scrutiny, the more like we talked about religion and we talked about everything. The more we talk about this, the more people are going. But that means you're doing it the right behaviors. That means you're going through the right, and you quantum jumped into that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You
Um,
stabilize it.
what would you say was your biggest tools you used to do accomplish that to be that badass, the warrior that you are now, compared to the person who's scared to post one little thing? What do you think that was?
Um, inner child work, inner child work, inner child work. Oh my gosh. Like that.
What about inner child work?
Oh, so I learned inner child work. I was the person always resistant to therapy. Absolute starseed, do not like anything traditional, constantly looking for something that's multidimensional. But I actually went through a certification course for quantum inner child healing. So, I mean, that's what I was going to bring out to the world. Little did I know, I bought it for myself. I invested in it for myself. And it was going back. And that's where I started learning quantum leaping and timeline and all of that, because it was me going back to these points that my subconscious brought up to the surface as I was sitting with certain feelings and whatever was coming up, I'd be brought back to a point, and I got the chance to sit with my inner child and listen and just bring that safety, security, that safe space to be seen into reality finally. So, this was a lot of meditation, visualization, and I mean, imagination is power. Imagination is power because it's the realest thing we have. This this is not as real as imagination.
Yeah, I learned that, and even movies, they tell you all that all the time. It's all embedded in front of us. What did your inner child say? What was some of the things she said? Let's.
She just needed a voice. She needed a voice. She needed that was it. I mean, I I dealt with chronic like strep throat all through my childhood and through college. So I know that voice was stifled. And the moment I gave her a voice, the shift started happening. When you do that quantum level and inner child work, you are shifting timelines, dropping timelines, and it's going to create a shift in your frequency and naturally create that quantum leap. So that's one portal to quantum leaping, is that inner child work and going back and if you think about shamanic work, going back, retrieving that fragmentation and bringing it back in so that you don't have those openings in your auric field that are, making you more susceptible to, oogie boogies essentially getting into your energetic field and everything.
I mean, it's crazy to think about quantum jumping and everything else, but now you even mentioned there's like multiple different doors that you can go that through. So that even blows the mind.
Yeah. Honestly, the first time I've really made that connection there, but there is a connection there. You're going into the quantum field space to do that. So inner child work, huge. Psychic development work. Oh, it's like everyone just needs to tap in and accept their psychicness because it's going to make your life so much easier. Like when I didn't have that and I was going through my dark night of the soul, I was like, great, I'm going into psychosis. Cool. But once you can see the energies, sense the energies, or, however you read that, it's like, okay, you can start distinguishing yourself from other people or other whatever else is around. Um, yeah, those are two big ones.
It's kind of
And
like stepping outside and looking at it from a third person perspective, right? Like I've caught myself doing that every day. And I'm like, oh, step back. I'm like, well, was that really you? Or was that the person's energetic field? Was that and not being scared to, especially for divine feminine here. I know we can correlate, go all the way back, talk about religion and being scared about looking within, growing yourself, and then all of a sudden now you have this power that you never had before, right? And now you're distinguishing people's auras and distinguishing people's energy, and you're like protecting it, eating better, and doing it all.
yeah, it becomes more real. So it makes the work worth it. And, and that psychic work has developed into deeper meditation, which is, you can go into the Akashic record, do like past life or other life, tap into other aspects of yourself, bring in that energy. And that can really help with quantum leaping. Light language is a huge tool of mine. It sounds wild. It really does sound wild, but it helps with that DNA activation, grounding, clearing, which those are just really that foundation for surviving this.
Yeah, and how did you get into the light language?
I think a YouTube video popped up, and I grew up in a Pentecostal church, so speaking in tongues is not something new to me. And I clicked on it and I was like, I don't know what that is, but it felt good. And I knew I could speak it, and I was terrified. It took me years. Now I'm like constantly walking around just popping off.
I mean, I look forward to the other day. It came up on my phone, and I was like, I put it near my ear, and I'm like, go ahead, activate myself. Go ahead, listen to. It's truly, I've heard it a lot, and I wish I can speak it, or it's not my timing yet to do that. But I'm always impressed with people that can actually speak the light language.
Yeah, it will come in its time. And the reason that happens, the a level of light that it starts to pour into your field can be it's intense. I mean, that's definitely a part of the quantum leap too. You're anchoring all this light into your field, and with light come more light means you can see farther into the corners and into the dark. So our light expands out more and more and more. We see a little more, and little more. New levels, new devils. So, you know, it, building that capacity to be able to be like, okay, this is coming up not because I'm a bad person. This is coming up because when I clear this, this is going to unlock something for me. You
Yeah,
know,
I can only imagine. You are a warrior, by the way. Yeah. I mean, you've been through several awakenings. You've shared your story. You have all this. You've light language from looking at all. That's what it is, right? We just have to look at it at our own shadows. We have to work on our shadows and wake up. Literally, awakening is waking up to your true self.
yeah, I always resonated with the shaman, with the alchemist. The shaman goes into the underworld and retrieves soul fragments, and it isn't afraid to it, which is very, very Persephone, very Isis. Like, they can be both dark and light and beautiful in both.
I think that's what society needs to hear. Like our humanity is operating out of fear, ego, a bunch of different aspects of their world, and they're not willing to look at their shadows. It's scared, but like that is the path. That is literally the path to your best self.
It's the key. It
Yeah.
helps you unlock new levels.
Now let's talk about if you can say one, let's say, kind of like closing statement or something, a message to the audience of one of the most important things, what would you say to anybody who's going through all of this and a takeaway from this?
Find the magic in everything. That was a big message that came through from my higher self yesterday because when you're going through your awakening, when you're going through a quantum leap, when you're in those dark spaces, what I found for myself, when I feel like the magic isn't there, that's where I feel depressed and anxious. Even if things feel a little fuzzy and people around me, like there's family chaos and stuff, if I can be that pillar of light, which is staying connected to that magic. And what I mean by that, it could be connected to your intuition, your psychic gifts, looking for synchronicity, um, meditating, connecting with your higher self when things, just create that magic. Maybe if you work with like clients, figure out what their human design is, and start interacting in that space and start seeing the world past the 3D, past the 4D. The anchoring of the 5D is going to come through our acceptance that it's there.
Yeah, and that's a strong message because if you really truly think about it, even I know you and me both, I still struggle to every day to keep focusing on the magic because it's difficult in the world that we live in. We get pulled into back to the 3D world of like all this nastiness in the middle, right?
Yeah. Anytime I'm with family, I'm always like, I must be doing the work when I have a lot of family time coming up at the same time, because that's where I feel the least amount of magic like evident around me. And it can be, it kind of breaks my heart sometimes. I'm like, oh no, I'm falling, I'm drowning. But, just finding ways to find that magic, whatever that looks like for you, play, be creative. It will keep you aligned with that higher frequency.
I think they say to date yourself or play with your inner child and do all these little things that you forgot what you needed to do. Like I think about back about when I was a little kid and what I like to do and everything else, and I was like, wait, why am I not doing this? I get caught up in this whole mud of the world, and that's kind of finding your magic, right?
Yeah. Even if it's as simple as having your own solo concert in your car at the top of your lungs. Like it sounds silly and simple, but it will shift your frequency and make
Sounds like you
you
have experience.
every day. Well, maybe not every day having to have a concert, but yeah, maybe. Yeah, belting out tunes full blast, the best.
So sounds like you're going into your biggest dream, which is to be in a rock band, and then you just turn the audience to your car, and then you sing everything through your car.
See, I've already manifested the reality.
I'll take the autograph now, so then when you get to that part of your 5D consciousness part, you become that rock star. Just remember this, okay?
Yes. Yes.
Now,
I-
it's already been logged. It's already happening. It's already set in stone.
It's done. I can see it right now.
And how would people find you if they want to like contact you and find out more or just talk to you?
Yeah, I am over on Instagram at aurora.light, and that's Lite. And from there, you can find the link to my blog. I am writing about spiritual ascension 101 and helping to guide people through that. I mean, it's just my contribution to the world. I wish someone had sent me a field guide so I wasn't like trying to find answers in 5 million other places. Like let's have some precision here.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely important. Like I said, I know a couple people off the top of my head that can use that guide and just going through life, especially coming from religious backgrounds and coming through other aspects of the world, that I can see that they would definitely benefit from something like you or just guidance, right? And overall, we're all trying to help at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'm always posting. Well, I've been a little short on posting on Instagram lately, but I do like to post a lot of different. Honestly, it's a menagerie of topics. It's what comes through, but I always trust it will find who it needs to find. So lots of fun things there, and following quantum leap journeys. Woohoo!
I think people forget that we're all connected and we all love each other at the end of the day. We're all human experiencing this and this human world, right? And we forget we're all connected at the end.
Yeah, yep. If you center it up, all those millions, billions, gazillions of strings all move up and have that 0 point connection.
Well, I appreciate you coming on today. Love to have you again some other time, but I do appreciate in telling about your story and being vulnerable to the audience.
Yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for coming on today.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.